Welcome to Mystic Realms Recap. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy today's episode.
Inside the Wind King barrier. After everyone entered, they discovered that this was actually a wind element energy passageway formed by dense wind. However, the wind element here was very gentle and did not affect the galaxy's flight at all. Wu Tu volunteered to explore the situation ahead. After Zhou Zhou gave his permission, he and Yuan Song, who had just joined the Blazing Sun Kingdom, led a team of cartographers and some legendary tier professionals to fly forward on a galaxy and quickly disappeared from their sight. A moment later, they returned. Your Majesty, we've just roughly investigated the situation here. Even though this new Wind Demon Kingdom has more than 50 million fog monster soldiers on the surface, in fact, there are about 1 billion fog monsters, including the subjects that have transformed into fog monsters in the new Wind Demon Kingdom. However, other than soldiers, most of the fog monsters transformed from civilians are very weak. Most of them are only Black Iron tier and Green Bronze tier. There are only a few of White Silver tier. However, there will also be some fog monsters transformed from Epic tier and Legendary tier non-soldier combat professionals and subjects. Nonetheless, there are very few of them. There won't be more than 100 of them. Also, we just found the life signals of 3 low-tier deity-level god spirits in the new Wind Demon Kingdom through Galaxy's radar. Other than that, there's also a Wind Element Legendary tier pure-blooded dragon here. In the entire new Wind Demon Kingdom, it's the only one that hasn't been transformed into a fog monster. In addition, we also discovered the new Wind Kingdom's armory, the kingdom's treasury, the Divine Herb Garden, the Inheritance Tower, and many other locations where the kingdom's resources might be stored. This is a map of the geographical location. Wu Tu reported and handed Zhou Zhou a map of the new Wind Demon Kingdom that he had just drawn. Zhou Zhou took it. When he first looked at it, his eyes were filled with obvious surprise. Because in his conjecture, he felt that the new Wind Demon Kingdom should exist in a continent in the sky. There were all kinds of strange terrains in the myriad worlds. A continent in the sky was not a rare terrain. However, when he saw the geographical map of the new Wind Demon Kingdom, he realized that he was wrong. This was because the new Wind Demon Kingdom was actually made up of rooms, shops, buildings, and even palaces that floated in the air. These buildings did not even have their own land. They just floated in the sky with the rich wind element. Moreover, it was orderly and not chaotic. It had a unique civilized architectural style. One of the most obvious characteristics of the wind was freedom. But here, Zhou Zhou could actually see traces of the characteristics of all things from these wind elements. The architectural style of your new Wind Kingdom is really novel and unique. Zhou Zhou praised Li Huiyue. That's true. My king father told us a long time ago that our new Wind Kingdom is a country blessed by the god of wind. Perhaps the former new Wind Kingdom was inferior to the Blazing Sun Kingdom in many aspects. However, in terms of how to develop the wind element, even some empire-level lords might not be stronger than our new Wind Kingdom. Li Huiyue's aged face revealed a hint of pride. However, when she thought of the current situation of the new Wind Demon Kingdom, her expression darkened again. What about the legendary tier dragon with wind attribute? Zhou Zhou asked. That wind god dragon is the guardian divine dragon of our new Wind Kingdom. Its name is Cessier. It has been in the new Wind Kingdom for a long time. It seems that Cessier existed when the new Wind Kingdom was first established. Your Majesty, don't worry about it. Cessier knows my new wind bloodline. With me around, Cessier won't attack us. Li Huiyue hurriedly said. She wasn't worried that Cessier would hurt the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Instead, she was worried that the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom would accidentally injure Cessier. That wouldn't be good. Cessier might be strong, but it was only average in front of the experts of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. The new Wind Kingdom is interesting. Zhou Zhou looked interested. He originally thought that this trip was just an ordinary crusade. It was only an advanced kingdom after all. Even though Zhou Zhou had never fought it, with his current strength, even if it was an empire-level lord faction, he and his Blazing Sun Kingdom might not lose. Not to mention an advanced kingdom. However, he did not expect this. The new Wind Kingdom had really given him some surprises. After entering the New Wind Demon Kingdom, take down all the subjects of the New Wind Demon Kingdom as soon as possible. If you see teacher Li Huiyu as King Father, Mother, relatives, and friends, try your best to capture them alive. Zhou Zhou ordered. 4.2 billion Blazing Sun Kingdom soldiers plus 10 powerful Blazing Sun Kingdom God Spirits vs more than 1 billion New Wind Demon Kingdom citizens plus 3 low-tier deity level God Spirits. With such a huge difference in strength, it naturally gave Zhou Zhou the confidence to capture the other party alive. He was looking forward to the future development of the sacred redemption medicine. Especially after obtaining the statue of the Yellow Emperor's ancestor, he was even more confident in his anticipation. Maybe one day, the talents in his territory could develop the sacred redemption medicine that would return to its previous life form after becoming a fog monster for a long time. When the time comes, Li Huiyu as King Father and Queen Mother would be able to return to normal and reunite with their daughter. Zhou Zhou was not a saint. However, as long as it was within his capabilities, he naturally hoped that his subjects would be happier. "Thank you, Your Majesty." After hearing Zhou Zhou's order, Li Huiyu was very touched. This meant that her loyalty was already dead loyal and could not increase anymore. Otherwise, if Zhou Zhou became a god spirit now, she would be able to directly advance from a dead loyal citizen to a fanatic believer. Zhou Zhou smiled and did not say anything else. However, Li Huiyu had already silently engraved His Majesty's kindness in her heart. A moment later, they flew out of the wind elemental passageway. As soon as they came out of the passageway, Zhou Zhou and the others felt the scarlet fog that covered the sky and earth. It rushed towards them, as if it wanted to turn ordinary life forms like them into fog monsters. Facing this scene, a layer of black membrane appeared on the surface of all the soldiers' bodies other than Zhou Zhou. With the ability of the Dark Walker, they easily blocked the invasion of the scarlet fog. As for Zhou Zhou, he did not even need to use the black membrane. He only needed the chaotic sacred power in his body to cover his body, and the scarlet fog would not be able to advance an inch. This chaotic sacred power has many other abilities that can be developed. Zhou Zhou was deep in thought when he saw this. At this moment, roar, die, bang, bang, bang. The fog monsters of the New Wind Demon Kingdom seemed to have discovered Zhou Zhou and company. It had been countless years since they had seen a normal life form. It was as if they had seen a delicacy. They held all kinds of weapons and flew towards them from the sky. Thick spatial power erupted, forming a spatial passageway with endless suction behind it, directly sucking it into the spatial rift. The divine spirits and soldiers did not stand on ceremony. They led the army and charged towards the fog monsters in the New Wind Demon Kingdom. Half an hour later, after a one-sided battle, the entire New Wind Demon Kingdom gradually quietened down. The soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom began to clean up the battlefield. In front of Zhou Zhou and Li Huiyu stood two human fog monsters who were dressed in the Sky Blue King's and Queen's clothes and emitting scarlet fog. They were Li Huiyu's King Father and Queen Mother. Zhou Zhou looked at the two fog monsters in front of him. The King of the New Wind Demon Kingdom, Li Anlin. The New Wind Demon King Queen, Yang Lan. Both of them only had the strength of a legendary tier advanced grade. Facing Zhou Zhou's army and experts, they naturally had no resistance and were easily taken down. Then, they were bewitched by a legendary tier hero under his command and brought here. As for the three original New Wind God Spirits who had been transformed into Scarlet God Spirits, they were also easily destroyed by his subordinates. However, they only had legendary tier weapons and equipment, as well as a few inferior level materials. After being extracted by Zhou Zhou, he only obtained a few divine artifacts at the low-tier deity level and mid-tier deity level divine materials. It was better than nothing. At the side, Li Huiyu watched this scene in a daze. She had thought that Her Majesty would take down the New Wind Demon Kingdom very quickly. However, she did not expect it to be so fast. But thinking about it, it made sense. There was already a huge difference in strength. Under her persuasion, the Wind God Dragon did not attack the soldiers of the Blazing Sun Kingdom. Of course, even if it did, it would probably be useless. His Majesty used the insight defection again and directly incited 50 million soldiers to engage in internal strife. With the help of the 10 god spirits, in addition, the soldiers of the new Wind Demon Kingdom whom had almost forgotten how to use the war machines in the armory after being turned into fog monsters. The new Wind Demon Kingdom's counterattack was as laughable as a mantis trying to stop a chariot. Teacher Li, my idea is to temporarily imprison the King Father and Queen Mother of yours. When the Alchemist Union develops a higher quality sacred redemption medicine in the future, we will be able to restore your King Father and Mother to their normal life form. Then, we will release them and reunite them with Teacher Li. What do you think, Teacher Li? Zhou Zhou said. Just now, the moment he took down this couple, he had already received a mission notification regarding the mission to conquer the new Wind Demon Kingdom, a mid-tier deity-level advanced grade hidden mission that had been completed. Thank you, Your Majesty. I can accept it. Li Huiyue immediately knelt down and greeted Zhou Zhou respectfully. This was already the best outcome for her. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he gently raised his hand. Li Huiyue stood up uncontrollably, causing her to look surprised. Then, he turned to look at the wind god dragon. It was a dragon that was about 1,000 meters long. Its entire body was greenish-blue, and there was a sky-blue dragon horn on its forehead. Its entire body emitted dense wind elemental energy, and at the same time, its body was covered in a layer of light green dragon armor. At this moment, it was communicating with the extreme dragon and Nazario in a low voice. He could tell that Nazario and the others accepted this new dragon very quickly. Under the gazes of many of its clansmen, this wind god dragon was a little nervous and uneasy. It didn't look like fear. Instead, it looked like social phobia. Zhou Zhou walked over and stood in front of it. His body emitted the bloodline pressure of the light sacred dragon. Cessier, you are the guardian of the new Wind Kingdom's treasury. Bring me to the new Wind Kingdom's treasury, he said. In the face of the light sacred dragon's gentle and dignified bloodline pressure, Cessier was not so nervous. He was even a little close to Zhou Zhou. It nodded obediently and lowered its body, indicating that Zhou Zhou could climb onto its back. Zhou Zhou raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, he flew onto its back. Whoosh! Cessier's dragon wings flapped, and the wind elemental energy was like a docile child. It carried Cessier and Zhou Zhou into the sky and flew towards the center of the new Wind Demon Kingdom. Nazario and the extreme dragon looked at each other. Nazario, roar! I didn't expect this kid with thick eyebrows and big eyes to be a bootlicker. Extreme dragon, roar! I also want to be ridden by His Majesty. Nazario, ho ho! His Majesty's aura really makes the dragon god fall for him. The treasury of the new Wind Demon Kingdom was located in an invisible space in the middle of the new Wind Demon Kingdom. As the guardian of the kingdom's treasure vault, Cessier used the energy in its body to carve an opening seal and easily open the kingdom's treasure vault. Then, it brought Zhou Zhou in. After entering the treasure vault, Zhou Zhou took a closer look and was immediately shocked. In the huge kingdom's treasury, there were as many as 10 mountains piled up with high-level mist cores. The total value was probably 40,000 to 50,000 legendary tier mist cores. It was 100 times better than the beginner kingdom. Zhou Zhou even saw more than 100 divine crystals and 5 divine spark fragments containing law skills placed in the treasure box. There were all kinds of high-level armor, high-level potions, rare class change certificates, rare materials, territory fusion certificates, special treasures, high-level elemental gems. There were all kinds of treasures, and the amount was huge. Zhou Zhou looked at them one by one, but he did not put them into his king's treasure box. Instead, he planned to transport all the soldiers back to the Blazing Sun Kingdom and store them in his kingdom's treasury for the territory's subjects to exchange for. He would treat it as increasing the kingdom's finances. As for his king's treasure box, Zhou Zhou had already decided that unless it was a top-grade treasure, such as a god-tier treasure, a true god-tier treasure, or even a master god-tier treasure, or a treasure that he urgently needed, he would not easily put it in his small vault. He looked all the way. Zhou Zhou unknowingly arrived at the last row of the kingdom's treasury. Then, he saw a dark golden kingdom golden tablet. He didn't even look at the endurance. He directly took out the sword of new dimension creation and poured his chaotic sacred power into it. Buzz. Under the infusion of the chaotic sacred power, the sword of space-time immediately emitted intense spatial fluctuations in all directions, evolving into countless spatial illusions, making the realm where Zhou Zhou was seemed to have entered a spatial flux. Fear appeared in Cecier's eyes. However, when it saw that these space-time illusions and space-time fluctuations did not harm it, it heaved a sigh of relief. It even felt that this space-time illusion was a little fun. Zhou Zhou ignored Cecier. He took a deep breath and slashed the kingdom's golden tablet. Crack! Under this sword, 1/3 of the kingdom's golden tablet turned into a large number of fragments and fell to the ground. Surprise flashed across Zhou Zhou's eyes. Even though he did not use the king just now and only used his chaotic sacred power and the sword of space-time, the power of his sword was comparable to the full-strength attack of an ordinary high-tier deity-level god spirit. He did not expect that he would not be able to shatter this high-level kingdom's golden tablet with a single strike. If a legendary tier expert came, they probably wouldn't be able to break the skin of this kingdom's golden tablet even after a year. The supreme will is indeed not simple. Zhou Zhou did not mind and slashed twice more. With a loud bang and the sound of the kingdom's golden tablet shattering, 3 tokens appeared in front of Zhou Zhou. They were the legendary intermediate grade territory token, the legendary tier regional token, and the new Wind Kingdom's epic tier advanced grade kingdom token. At this stage, the sword of new dimension creation is most suitable for me. Let's not use the other true god tier intermediate grade or advanced grade divine artifacts for now. I can't even unleash the greatest power of the sword of new dimension creation after all, let alone other more powerful divine artifacts. If I forcefully use it, the gains won't make up for the losses. Zhou Zhou muttered to himself. Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the 3 tokens, and he was slightly surprised. The capital of the new Wind Kingdom is actually a legendary tier territory? No wonder the natural energy here is so dense. If an ordinary person lives here, even if they don't have an extraordinary tier class and don't undergo any cultivation, their physique will probably be comparable to the lowest black iron tier professionals. Then, his gaze landed on the epic tier advanced grade kingdom token and he nodded in satisfaction. With this epic tier advanced grade kingdom token, his blazing sun kingdom's upgrade to an advanced kingdom would fulfill another condition. Then, he put away the 3 tokens and went to the wall at the back of the kingdom's treasury. The walls were gray, but they were abnormally sturdy. It seemed natural for such a sturdy wall to be used to protect the kingdom's treasure vault. If Zhou Zhou had not completed the mission, he might have thought so, but he did. With a flip of his right hand, a complete sky blue divine spark appeared in his hand. Moreover, it was a true god-tier divine spark. If someone obtained it, they might be able to comprehend a true god-tier inheritance. Unfortunately, the divine power inside it had already disappeared. All that was left was an empty shell. This was the mission reward he had obtained after completing the quest to crusade the new Wind Demon Kingdom. It was not only an empty shell of the divine spark without divine power, but also a key to finding the true lost treasure of the new Wind Kingdom. At this moment, Zhou Zhou held the empty shell of the divine spark and looked at the sturdy wall in front of him. He had a strange feeling. The lost treasure was hidden in the wall. Beside him, the wind god dragon Cecier was originally curiously sizing up the surrounding space-time illusions. However, when Zhou Zhou took out the empty shell of the divine spark, its gaze immediately landed on the empty shell and it did not move. Zhou Zhou also noticed this scene, but he didn't say anything. He just gently pushed his hand forward. The next second, a sky green and bright silver elemental vortex gradually appeared on the gray wall in front of him. This spatial teleportation array. It's a little similar to the spatial teleportation array we came in from. Zhou Zhou's eyes flickered. Then, he sensed his body and realized that he did not trigger danger prediction and talent intuition. He stepped in without hesitation. The wind god dragon looked at the elemental vortex in a daze. Its heart was a little restless, as if something was summoning it. This feeling made it nervous and apprehensive. There was even some pain that came out of nowhere. It was as if some deeply hidden memories were about to surge into its mind. Unknowingly, it also crossed this elemental vortex. After an uncomfortable flight, Zhou Zhou walked out of the elemental passage. Then, he quickly saw something and his gaze froze. In the distant void, there was actually a huge dragon bone that was 1,000,000 meters long. The dragon bone should have been here for a long time, but even so, it still gathered majestic wind and spatial divine power around its body, causing the dragon bone to still have the residual power of the dragon god even though it had died many years ago. Zhou Zhou looked at it, and a text notification appeared. Item name: Dragon God of Heavenly Wind, Kika Skeleton. Item level: True God Tier Elementary Grade. Item effect: a complete True God Tier Dragon Bone. It is a True God Tier material with wind attributes and rare spatial attributes. It has extremely high practical value and collection value. Item description: 2,000 years ago, the Dragon God of Heavenly Wind, Kika, accidentally consumed a True God Tier Advanced Grade ingredient, the Wind God Origin Crystal. Kika originally wanted to use it as a supplement, but the Wind God Origin Crystal absorbed all the divine power in its body and became a supplement for the Wind God Origin Crystal. Before it died, Kika put its child and its empty divine spark together, and then its divine power was exhausted and it died. Decades later, the first king of the New Wind Kingdom passed by the place where Kika died. By chance, he obtained Kika's corpse and its remains. Then, he used this unexpected wealth to establish the powerful New Wind Kingdom. Until the mist source descended, no one discovered the secret of the New Wind Kingdom's rise. I see. Zhou Zhou was speechless. He did not expect the founding of the New Wind Kingdom to have such a secret. He glanced at Cecir, who was staring blankly at the huge dragon bone. This guy should be the child of this Kika, dragon god of heavenly wind. No wonder this little guy stayed here and did not go out. It was probably still yearning for its mother's aura here. Zhou Zhou didn't think too much about it. His gaze landed on the dragon god of heavenly wind's dragon bone again. He looked at it thoughtfully. What was that wind god origin crystal? It could actually suck a true god tier to death? Suddenly, Zhou Zhou's pupils constricted slightly as he subconsciously tightened his grip on the sword of new dimension creation. This was because in his vision, there was actually a magical crystal that was intertwined with bright silver light in the sky wind dragon god's dragon head bones. It was hidden in the interlayer of space. Zhou Zhou might not have discovered it if not for the sword of new dimension creation in his hand. This was not what surprised Zhou Zhou the most. What surprised Zhou Zhou the most was he could actually sense the aura of life from the mysterious crystal. Could that be the wind god origin crystal? Zhou Zhou had some guesses. He pondered for a moment and flew over without hesitation to the sky wind dragon god's dragon head bone. Just as he was about to do something, Cecir suddenly flew in front of him and looked at him firmly. Even though it knew that this human in front of it was very strong and that he had a bloodline that even it was afraid of, but it also had its reasons for not backing down. Zhou Zhou looked at Cecir in front of him and could not help but feel a little helpless. If I had known earlier, I would have made you my subject. Now you're making me look like a villain. He took a deep breath and said seriously, "Move aside. I'm not being rude to your mother's corpse. I just want to take something from its body." Cecir was stunned. It hesitated for a few seconds before finally giving way. For some reason, it felt that it could trust the other party. Zhou Zhou did not say anything else when he saw this. He raised his hand and waved. The magical crystal hidden in the interlayer of space flew out and landed in his hand. Zhou Zhou looked at the crystal in his hand, and a text notification appeared. Treasure name: Wine Divine Source Embryo. Treasure grade: True God Tier Advanced Grade. Treasure effect: a sleeping divine fetus sleeping with true God Tier dragon soul. After it recognizes its master is fed divine crystals by its master until it reaches a certain stage, the master will obtain a dragon with the potential of a true God Tier. Furthermore, he can quickly grow to the true God Tier. Treasure description: a dragon fetus formed by accident. There is a dragon god soul sleeping inside that died unwillingly. Zhou Zhou narrowed his eyes and looked at the wind god source embryo. Could it be That the source embryo inside is the dragon god of heavenly wind? Isn't this just a pet egg? He clicked his tongue in wonder. He looked at Cecir, who was not far away. Cecir's attention did not seem to be on the wind god source embryo in Zhou Zhou's hand at all. He was like a child, leaning against the dragon god of heavenly wind's dragon bone. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and first dripped a drop of blood on its surface to make it recognize him as its master. Then, he sensed that there was an enfeebled spiritual force in the wind god's source embryo that was transmitting the idea of needing divine crystals to him. Zhou Zhou's expression was calm as he threw a low-grade divine crystals into the wind god's source embryo to test the waters. This low-tier deity-level elementary-grade divine crystals easily fused into the wind god's source embryo. It only lit up slightly before calming down. Not enough. Not enough. His divine sense called out longingly. The corners of Zhou Zhou's mouth twitched. He was also a big eater. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and simply took out a piece of Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals and placed it in the Wind God Source embryo. The next second, the Wind God Source embryo suddenly released an astonishing sky blue light and a bright silver light, firmly attaching this Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals to the surface of his body. However, no matter how it absorbed the divine crystals, this divine crystal, which was of a Master God Tier Advanced Grade, could not be absorbed by it. After working hard for a long time, the Wind God Source embryo helplessly released its absorption of the divine crystals and sent a thought to Zhou Zhou. Too big, too big. Zhou Zhou. He put away this Master God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystal, then took out another true God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystal and placed it on this Wind God Source embryo. This time, he saw that the Wind God Source embryo took about 10 seconds to slowly and firmly absorb this true God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals into its body. After completely absorbing it, its surface began to emit a faint sky blue and silver light. It looked a little magical. I'm full. I'm going to sleep. Zhou Zhou. Looks like feeding a true God Tier Advanced Grade Divine Crystals in a short period of time is enough, and it can't absorb anymore. He placed it into his king's treasure box thoughtfully. The king's treasure box was essentially a dead realm. It was equivalent to a Dharma-ending realm without life forms. It could also accommodate creatures to survive, but there was not much energy in the air. He looked at Cecir. Cecir, I have something to ask you. Cecir turned around and looked at Zhou Zhou in confusion. What are your plans for the future? Do you want to continue staying here with your mother, or do you want to leave this place and go your own way? This place has already become my territory. If you're willing to stay by your mother's side, you can join this king's kingdom. This king will bestow this place to you as your fief. You can become the lord of this area and stay here with a good reputation. If you want to leave this place and travel the myriad worlds, you don't have to worry about your mother's safety. This place has been nurtured by your mother's divine power for countless years. It's already an excellent graveyard. It's very suitable for your mother's corpse to rest here. After you leave, I'll send my soldiers here to guard this place. At the same time, I'll set up a spatial teleportation array to facilitate mutual support. At that time, you don't have to worry about the safety of your mother's corpse. Of course, if you choose the former and want to change your mind in the future, you can come straight to me. I'll send troops to take over this place when the time comes. Zhou Zhou said. A true God-tier dragon bone was precious. If he knew a true God-tier undead archmage, he might be able to modify a bone dragon with true God-tier combat power. However, it was neither precious nor precious because no matter how valuable it was at most equivalent to a true God-tier divine artifact in Zhou Zhou's hands. Therefore, Zhou Zhou was not obsessed with taking this dragon bone away. There was another important reason. The reason why the new Wind Demon Kingdom could become a city in the sky was that even the subjects of the new Wind Kingdom in the past had mastered the ability to fly. Even when babies were born, they had wind and spatial stats talents. The fundamental reason was this true God-tier dragon bone. While the dragon bone used its divine power to protect Cecir, it also silently changed the physique of the new wind subjects, giving them extraordinary tier abilities and talents. This was also why Li Huiyue said that their new wind kingdom was blessed by the god of wind. To a certain extent, That was indeed the case. Zhou Zhou wanted to keep the dragon bone here and maintain its original appearance. Firstly, he did not want to destroy this legendary tier territory. Secondly, he wanted to use it as a talent cultivation base in the Blazing Sun Kingdom. With the environment here, a large number of talents would definitely be born. After hearing Zhou Zhou's words, confusion and yearning flashed across Cecier's eyes. It had never seen the so-called scenery of the myriad worlds before since it had been living here since it was born until now. As a wind elemental dragon, its nature was originally to yearn for the sky and freedom. However, it was imprisoned in this so-called city in the sky. This was because only the royal family of the New Wind Kingdom knew about the secret passage that Li Huiwen knew about. Even though it was the kingdom's guardian, it wasn't of royal blood, so it couldn't pass through. In such an environment, even though Cecier had its mother accompanying it, there were times when it felt unbearable and would roar at the sky. This was the home of its mother, but wasn't it also its prison? Cecier wants to leave this place. Cecier wants to see the outside world. After a moment of silence, Cecier suddenly roared and transmitted his voice. Then join my kingdom and become my subject. Zhou Zhou said calmly. Wind God Dragon, Cecier greets your majesty. Cecier did not hesitate to greet Zhou the way dragon gods greets with respect. This was the highest etiquette of the dragon race. As the possessor of the legendary dragon bloodline, Zhou Zhou deserved to be treated like this. Zhou Zhou acknowledged. From today onwards, you are a member of the Dragon God Army. There are many dragons in the Dragon God Army. You won't feel lonely there. In the future, this king's footprints will spread throughout the myriad worlds. I can satisfy your desire for freedom. He smiled. It was a beautiful picture. Whether it could be achieved or not was another matter. He had to paint it for Cecier first. Cecier's eyes lit up. Even though it had social phobia, deep down, it also yearned to make friends and have the joy of friends. This was not contradictory. After that, Zhou Zhou and Cecier left and returned to the surface. At this moment, Bai Yun and the others had already finished cleaning up the battlefield and were waiting for his orders. Zhou Zhou looked at them and then at the sky city covered in scarlet fog. He could not help but fall into deep thought. The mist source had completely integrated with the laws of this area, turning this place into a scarlet land. It was impossible to dispel the scarlet fog here. Fortunately, the people in their territory were all dark walkers. Otherwise, they would not be able to use this place as a talent cultivation base. Build a spatial teleportation array here and get the kingdom to send some soldiers to guard this place. From today onwards, this is the secret talent cultivation base of our Blazing Sun Kingdom. No one is allowed to leak about this place. Zhou Zhou ordered.
Yes.
The soldiers shouted in unison, their voices shaking the clouds. Zhou Zhou looked at the 4 billion soldiers and fell into deep thought. He felt that it would be very difficult to keep this place a secret. Never mind. It did not matter if it was a secret or not. At the very least, he had obtained a legendary tier territory. It was not a loss at all. After that, Zhou Zhou got the soldiers to plunder every inch of wealth in this area, including the wealth of the kingdom's treasure vault. Then, he left. Inside the galaxy, Wind God Dragon Cecier stood in the virtual environment and stared blankly at the Wind King barrier that had long disappeared in the distance. You can come back after you take a leave of absence. Zhou Zhou's voice sounded. Then, he came to Cecier's side. Cecier nodded in confusion. This was the first time it had left the place where it was born and raised. It would be a lie to say that it was not nervous. Zhou Zhou was about to say something. At this moment, Wu Tu quickly walked in front of Zhou Zhou and said with a serious expression, Your Majesty, the Empire-level Scarlet Army that I told His Majesty about and the Kingdom-level Scarlet Army that they gathered have officially set off for the territory of our Blazing Sun Kingdom. According to the information sent by the intelligence personnel of my Heavenly Chart Army, this time, they brought a total of 12 Empire-level Scarlet Legions and more than 200 Kingdom-level Scarlet Legions. The total number of enemies has reached 5 billion. And the 3 Empire-level Scarlet Corps in the lead are called Yellow Sky, Black Demon, and Magic God. Their Empire-level Scarlet Corps is completely made up of Empire-level soldier types. Just the number of soldiers of the Empire-level soldier type exceeds 1 billion. Wu Tu's tone was very solemn. The Scarlet Empire has really invested a lot this time. Zhou Zhou's expression turned serious. They had finally encountered the Empire-level Scarlet Army with their Empire-level soldier types. Strictly speaking, only an empire with an Empire-level soldier type could be considered a qualified Empire-level Lord faction. An Empire-level Lord faction without an Empire-level soldier type was actually at the bottom of the empires. They basically had no status and would even be treated as a kingdom-level Lord faction by some arrogant Empire-level Lord factions. What to do? The difference in combat strength between an Empire-level soldier type and a kingdom-level soldier type was too great after all. An empire with an Empire-level soldier type could almost defeat an ordinary empire without an Empire-level soldier type. At this moment, Wu Tu sent a specific piece of information to Zhou Zhou's personal terminal. Zhou Zhou opened it and started reading. After a long time, he had just finished reading it. The Empire-level soldier type of the Yellow Sky Scarlet Empire is Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier. The Empire-level soldier type of the Black Demon Scarlet Empire is Soul-Absorbing Demon Spirit. The soldiers type of the Empire of the Magus God Scarlet Empire are Forbidden Mages. Zhou Zhou was deep in thought. According to the information, the race of the Yellow Sky Scarlet Empire was a race called the Spirit of the Yellow Sky. The Spirit of the Yellow Heaven was a race with a high bloodline. Their racial talent made their comprehension ability especially high. Therefore, it was very easy for God's Spirit-level experts to appear on the law path. However, even though their lower limit was high, their upper limit was average. Ever since the birth of the entire race, many low-tier to high-tier deity-level experts had appeared, but not a single true God-tier expert had appeared. Later on, it was the same even after it transformed into a scarlet fog monster. This made them an Empire-level Lord faction and unable to advance to a Divine Kingdom-level Lord faction. As for the Yellow Talisman Dao Soldier, it was changed from the Yellow Heaven Spirit. Their soldier-type power came from an item called a Yellow Talisman. The Yellow Talisman was the greatest inheritance of the race that the Spirit of the Yellow Heaven had developed. They carved their comprehension of Lord's Law on special yellow talismans, allowing them to obtain various nomological powers in advance before becoming God spirits. This made them look like the Shepherd's God race that had been weakened by thousands of times. However, the Shepherd's God race could master long-range, close combat, soul attacks, and other attacks. The nomological power of the Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers was all in their bodies and yellow talismans. This made their bodies extremely strong in close combat. Moreover, because they were energy bodies, they did not have any fatal weaknesses. Therefore, the Yellow Talisman Dao soldiers were considered famous among the many Empire-level close combat soldier types. However, other than being strong in close combat and having a strong body, the Yellow Talisman Dao soldier did not have any other advantages. And the Black Demon Scarlet Empire came from the devil race in the Abyss. Their Empire-level soldier type, the soul-absorbing demon spirit, was also changed from a demon. They could bewitch life forms and make them fallen. They could obtain immense power by devouring the souls and unholy emotions of life forms. It was an extremely evil Empire soldier type. In the eyes of most races, it was an occupation that they hated the most. As for the Empire soldiers type, Forbidden Mages, they were an Empire-level class that was even better than the Black Demon. They were a special class change for mages. By offering their faith to a group of indescribably terrifying god spirits, such mages obtained the magical knowledge of distorting taboos. Their methods were treacherous and twisted. They yearned for chaos. Some cruel methods such as blood sacrifice were simply the most common methods in the eyes of the Forbidden Mages. Therefore, they were also viewed as enemies by many races. However, no matter how hostile they were, the other races could not do much to this group of god spirits. That was because the strongest existence behind them was the Crimson Overlord. This group of enemies is not weak. Furthermore, the methods they are good at are also uncommon to me. Zhou Zhou thought with a heavy heart. On the surface, he remained calm. How long before they get to us? Zhou Zhou asked. They're advancing towards our blazing sun kingdom while getting the Scarlet factions along the way to set up spatial teleportation arrays. According to our calculations, they will arrive tonight at the earliest. We'll be there by midnight at the latest. Wu Tu said. Zhou Zhou nodded. He felt that it was a pity. Originally, he thought that if the other party came late, he could ambush them in advance and weaken their strength. Perhaps he could even get the Empire-level soldier-type class change certificate from the other party and use the monster ranch to greatly increase the strength of his soldiers. From the looks of it, it probably wouldn't work. If that's the case, then let's deal with whatever comes our way. They have Empire-level soldier types. My Violent Storm Spirit and Yellow Gold Tier God Attendant are not bad either. Moreover, I have accumulated a large number of Faith Divine Crystals. It's enough to kill all my soldiers and revive them. In addition to the many trump cards in my hands, my chances of winning shouldn't be small. Zhou Zhou's eyes darkened, but he did not panic. Actually, his greatest confidence came from the fact that his danger prediction and talent intuition did not give him any hints of danger. Otherwise, he would have run away long ago. But even so, it did not mean that he was absolutely safe. Danger prediction and talent intuition did not give him a hint of danger, but it did not necessarily mean that he could win. Even if he won in the end, the outcome might be a tragic victory. However, the outcome was that he did not die, so he did not trigger danger prediction and talent intuition. Therefore, before that, he had to make preparations and increase his strength. Only then could they have a higher chance of winning and minimize their losses. He already had some thoughts in his mind. When I get back, I'll go to the Night Temple and ask if I can invite a few human god spirits to help. Then, I'll increase my Lord talent. It's been a long time since I improved my Lord talent. The Lord talent crystal fragments I've accumulated are enough for me to improve greatly. Zhou Zhou began to think, looking for more ways to increase his enhancement. A moment later, in the blazing Sun Kingdom, after Zhou Zhou arrived, he immediately got the soldiers to rest and prepare for the battle that might happen tonight. He went straight to the Night Temple and found White River, who was working. What happened? When he saw Zhou Zhou, he knew that Zhou Zhou wouldn't wander around for no reason, especially when he was dealing with a large number of matters. Therefore, he was certain that Zhou Zhou had something to discuss with him. 12 Empire-level Scarlet Legions and more than 200 Kingdom-level Scarlet Legions are coming to attack my blazing Sun Kingdom. Their military strength should exceed 5 billion in total. Moreover, there are 3 Empire-level soldier types in 3 of the Empire-level Scarlet Army. I've come to ask for your help, Zhou Zhou said bluntly. He was stunned. He really wanted to ask if he had offended the Crimson Overlord. However, he quickly reacted and frowned. Did you attract them because you helped us deal with the Fog Monster faction of the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire? There must be a reason for that. However, the other party might have heard of my territory and brought so many soldiers over. Zhou Zhou thought for a moment and said. The corners of Baihe's mouth twitched upon hearing this. Well, it was clearly a lord faction that had just advanced to the intermediate kingdom, but there were already so many worshipped god spirits, and the number of soldiers had reached billions. The total number of troops of ordinary Empire-level lord factions was not as much as yours. If they didn't find so many soldiers to deal with you, they might really be worried. The more Baihe thought about it, the more ridiculous it felt, so he decided not to think about it anymore. I'll convene the Supreme Council immediately. He immediately stood up. Then, he paused and looked at Zhou Zhou. Perfect. You can participate too. Consider it your first formal meeting since you became a member of parliament. Okay. Zhou Zhou was stunned for a moment before nodding. A moment later, in the highest meeting room of the human race in the Night Temple, Zhou Zhou, Baihe, and 2 other high-tier deity-level god spirits from the Night Temple were sitting in front of a pitch-black round table. The pitch-black round table was very large. There were a total of 36 pitch-black chairs around it. At this moment, Only 4 chairs were occupied. He sat in one of the 5 main seats at the front. Beside he sat 2 high-tier deity-level god spirits from the Night Temple. As a member of the human race who had just joined the Supreme Council, Zhou Zhou sat at the end. At this moment, even though the 2 high-tier deity-level god spirits of the Night Temple were sitting upright, they could not help but occasionally look at Zhou Zhou. As the god spirits of the Night Temple, they naturally knew about Zhou Zhou's reputation and deeds. It was precisely because of this that they found this king of the blazing sun even more unbelievable. He could actually do something that so many higher-ups of the human race found difficult to do. Coupled with the joint statement of His Excellency Patriarch Liu and His Excellency the Yellow Emperor today, allowing King of the Blazing Sun to join the Supreme Council of the human race, all the higher-ups of the human race, especially those who had joined the Supreme Council of the human race, were very curious about King of the Blazing Sun. Of course, when it came to Zhou Zhou joining the upper echelons of the human race, every upper echelons of the human race definitely had different thoughts. Some were happy, some approved, some were indifferent, and some were opposed and displeased. What to do? Who asked Zhou Zhou to be so young? Coupled with the fact that his strength was not at the god spirit level and various other reasons, a portion of the upper echelons of the human race were not very satisfied with Zhou Zhou's position. They could acknowledge Zhou Zhou's contribution and ability. However, he felt that it was not yet Zhou Zhou's turn to sit in that seat. He wanted Zhou Zhou to slowly endure it. However, even though they had raised this idea, the Yellow Emperor and Patriarch Liu did not even bother with it and directly let Zhou Zhou join the Supreme Council of the human race. When they saw this, they could only keep their frustration and unwillingness in their hearts. The prestige of the Yellow Emperor and the other 5 peak experts of the human race was too great. No one dared to openly oppose the opinions of the Yellow Emperor and the others. Speaking of which, the Supreme Council of the human race had yet to begin. Thus, he began to introduce the 2 sides. This is Second Deputy Hall Master Ruoji of the Night Temple, a high-tier deity-level intermediate grade. He walks the path of the law of darkness and the law of assassination. The god spirit, Black Blade of the Abyss, is referring to him. His assassinate techniques have made the abyssal creatures tremble in fear. This is Third Deputy Hall Master Rick from the Night Temple. He's a high-tier deity and a high-tier advanced grade. He walks the path of contractual laws. At the same time, he's also the abyss summoning god that has been famous for a long time in our human race. He's extremely good at summoning abyssal creatures and light creatures. He also has a high-tier deity, a 12-armed snake demon, and a high-tier deity from the divine light world, Radiant Rainbow Deer. Back then, before they grew up, they were also extremely famous prodigies of our human race like you. They have already become the pillars of our human race. He smiled. They were all god spirits of the human race nurtured by he. Among the higher-ups of the human race, they could be considered his direct descendants. As for this kid, you should know that he's the most outstanding lord among the lords of the myriad races. He's even from our human race and saved the Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire. He also saved my life. He spoke bluntly about this matter. Then, he sighed with emotion. He's the most outstanding genius in the history of our human race apart from Regal Pangu. Ruoji and Rick could not help but click their tongues. The Temple Lord's evaluation of this kid was really high. However, it had to be said that the Temple Lord was not exaggerating at all. He even restrained himself and did not say anything about Zhou Zhou's other famous deeds. For example, the matter of winning the championship in the previous Supreme Will event and lending a large number of divine artifacts to the human race. The 2 of them were even wearing a few low-tier deity-level advanced grade divine artifacts that Zhou Zhou had lent them. I've long heard of your name. Today is the first time we've officially met. From now on, you're all human councilmen. Please take care of me if there's anything. These 2 high-tier deity levels did not look arrogant at all. They smiled and greeted Zhou Zhou. When Zhou Zhou saw this, he smiled and greeted the other party. They chatted briefly, and the atmosphere looked very harmonious. A moment later, they're all here. Prepare yourself. The Supreme Council has begun. He suddenly said. The next second, a pitch-black light suddenly appeared in the middle of the round table in front of the four of them. Then, this pitch-black light suddenly turned into 30 rays of light that landed on the other empty seats. Then, it quickly turned into a spiritual projection that looked like a real person. Zhou Zhou looked over and saw many familiar faces. For example, the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Liu, His Majesty Ji Yun, and His Majesty Liu Zhan. Zhou Zhou even saw the Black Moon King and some human big shots he had once met at the Night Temple's banquet. At this moment, even though they were only divine consciousness phantoms, their bodies also emitted a powerful god spirit aura, making the entire meeting room overflow with divine might. Fortunately, none of the people present were ordinary people. They could face this scene with normal expressions. Zhou Zhou noticed. At this moment, only 2 of the seats present were empty. One was a seat in the middle of the human upper echelons. The second seat was the first seat on the left side of the main seat. It was also empty. That should be the position of Emperor Pangu and the Buddha Lord. Zhou Zhou thought to himself, Temple Lord Bai, is there anything important that requires an emergency meeting of the human race? At this moment, the Yellow Emperor, who was at the first seat on the right of the main seat, asked. Then, he swept his gaze and quickly saw Zhou Zhou sitting at the end. He was stunned for a moment before he smiled gently. So our little friend Blazing Sun is here too. As soon as these words were spoken, other than the Yellow Emperor and White River, the other upper echelons of the human race looked at Zhou Zhou. Their gazes were either surprised, curious, calm, cold, or hostile as they looked at Zhou Zhou. Hello, seniors. Zhou Zhou said without any panic at all. He was also someone who had seen many things in life. Even though this was the first time he had experienced this meeting of the human race's Supreme Council, he would not be afraid. At most, he would be a little curious. Seeing Zhou Zhou's expression and actions, many people could not help but click their tongues in wonder. Even though this human junior looked very young, it seemed that he was quite confident. They were old and experienced, so they could naturally tell that Zhou Zhou was not faking it. Instead, he was truly confident and bold. This junior is indeed extraordinary, some higher-ups of the human race thought. It had to be said that Zhou Zhou's performance alone was enough to make many people admire him. At this moment, the upper echelons of the human race who had previously objected to Zhou Zhou joining the human race's Supreme Council were not stupid enough to stand up and speak. Since they had already promised the Yellow Emperor and Patriarch Liu to let Zhou Zhou join the Supreme Council, they would not say anything inappropriate on such an occasion. However, they had already planned to discuss Zhou Zhou on other unimportant occasions. Could it be that His Excellency Bai He urgently convened the human race's highest meeting and called us over just to celebrate the King of the Blazing Sun joining our human race's Supreme Council? At this moment, Heavenly Bodhisattva of Light from the Saha Empire, Roigar, suddenly said. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expressions changed slightly. Even though if a new upper echelons of the human race came to the Supreme Council, the upper echelons of the human race should summon a supreme meeting to meet and welcome the newcomers. This was considered a fixed process. However, the significance of holding a normal Supreme Council and an emergency Supreme Council were completely different. The former might just be discussing some things, and the matter could be big or small. The latter could indeed only be held if they encountered a major matter of the human race. If what Roigar said was true, even if the other party was a peak human powerhouse, the gods would still be dissatisfied. At the same time, Zhou Zhou's gaze landed on the heavenly Bodhisattva of Light as information about him surfaced in his mind. Heavenly Bodhisattva of Light, Roigar. As a Bodhisattva-level human powerhouse, his strength was comparable to a high-tier deity-level advanced-grade god. Moreover, now that the Buddha had undergone nirvana and entered the cycle of reincarnation, this person was the second strongest person apart from the current king of the Saha Empire, Kasyapa. Due to the difference in the empire's camp and the Buddha Lord's legacy, even Bai He could not severely punish the experts of the Saha Empire without a major reason. What if the Buddha Lord returned from nirvana one day and saw that the people of his empire were actually bullied when he was not around? What would others think? Are you bullying me when I'm at home? Zhou Zhou coughed lightly and said, This emergency meeting is not to welcome me, but it does have something to do with me." He thought for a moment and typed, "Who gave you the right to speak?" Heavenly Bodhisattva of Light Roigar glanced at Zhou Zhou with a calm expression and suddenly said coldly. Zhou Zhou was stunned. Then, he grinned and stood up slowly. "Roigar, do you dare to fight me?" He suddenly spoke. His voice was cold. The smile on his face also disappeared, leaving only an indifferent and cold expression. As soon as these words were spoken, not to mention Roigar, even by he, the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, the Black Moon King, and the others were stunned. Roigar was stunned for a few seconds before he sneered. "Do you know what you're talking about? You, a human junior who has yet to reach the Vajrabit realm, actually dare to challenge me? You're used to being arrogant among the myriad races. You don't know who you are when you return to reality, right? Why not?" Zhou Zhou's expression was calm as he gently stroked the sword of new dimension creation at his waist. His gaze swept across the many human god spirits present, but he did not look at the Yellow Emperor and the others. "Seniors present, if you are unconvinced that I'm sitting in this position, you can challenge me. This king won't reject anyone." The scene was a little quiet. All the higher-ups of the human race looked at Zhou Zhou. Other than the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, and by he, the other upper echelons of the human race only had one thought in their minds. Where did this guy get the guts? The Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Lu, and Bai He looked at each other, and then Bai He frowned slightly. "Zhou Zhou, sure." The Yellow Emperor suddenly spoke and interrupted what Bai He was about to say. He smiled at Zhou Zhou and Roigar. "I'll provide the battlefield. The two of you can fight." "Haha, I haven't seen such an interesting thing in a long time. Our human race's highest council really has to recruit more motivated newcomers. Otherwise, how could we have seen such a scene today?" "That's right." Patriarch Lu glanced at the Yellow Emperor. Then, he understood something and nodded with a smile. "You guys can spar." Bai He nodded in agreement. The higher-ups of the human race were speechless. How could they agree to such nonsense? A legendary tier advanced grade against a high-tier deity-level advanced grade. Wasn't the outcome obvious? Roigar was caught between a rock and a hard place. He had never expected that a dead human would dare to challenge him in such a solemn occasion. What he didn't expect was that the Yellow Emperor and them had actually agreed to this ridiculous request. He took a deep breath and slowly stood up, staring intently at Zhou Zhou. "All right, then I'll teach you the greatest principle in the myriad worlds. The weak have to respect the strong." Zhou Zhou did not speak and only looked at Roigar calmly. The Yellow Emperor smiled lightly when he saw this. His heart that had been sealed in the Xinyuan tomb for countless years was actually looking forward to it at this moment. He gently tapped with his right hand and saw 34 five-colored streams of light fly out from his fingers and land on the surrounding upper echelons of the human race. The next second, Zhou Zhou and Roigar saw the scene in front of them change. They had arrived at an ancient and complete arena. The figures of the Yellow Emperor and the other 34 upper echelons of the human race also appeared in the surrounding audience. I took the initiative to guide everyone's divine thoughts into my Xinyuan realm and turn them into divine thoughts. Little friend Blazing Sun, Roigar. If the two of you want to use weapons and armor, you can use your own divine senses to condense them. Even though my Xinyuan realm's secret technique is not perfect, it's not a problem to condense a high-tier deity-level divine artifact at the highest level. It's enough for the two of you to show off your skills. As for us, we'll just be spectators and watch the two of you fight heroically." The Yellow Emperor smiled. "Thank you, Your Holiness." Zhou Zhou and Roigar said politely. The Yellow Emperor smiled and nodded, then sat down. This little brother Blazing Sun seems to be quite confident. Patriarch Lu, who was sitting beside the Yellow Emperor, said with a smile, "Punch it open so that 100 punches won't come." The Yellow Emperor nodded. "Even though I'm a little surprised by what little friend Blazing Sun wants to do, since little friend has this idea, let's help him so that what we're going to do next will be smoother and avoid attracting gossip." Patriarch Lu nodded. The Yellow Emperor looked at Bai He with a smile. Little Bai, are you confident in little friend Blazing Sun's upcoming battle? Bai He hesitated for a second before nodding. Even though I've never seen him fight personally, Zhou Zhou has always thought twice before doing anything. Even though it's unbelievable, I feel that Zhou Zhou should be able to win. I think so too. The Yellow Emperor nodded. That's what I thought. Patriarch Lu said. The three of them looked at each other and laughed. If the Yellow Emperor and the others were confident in Zhou Zhou, then the other upper echelons of the human race in the audience did not think highly of Zhou Zhou at all. Legendary tier advanced grade challenging high tier deity level advanced grade? What was the king of the blazing sun thinking? Many upper echelons of the human race thought so. King of the blazing sun will definitely lose this battle. It all depends on whether Roygar will go easy on him. Go easy on him? With Roygar's narrow-mindedness, forget it. The king of the blazing sun is going to suffer. Young people are still too young. It's good to suffer. It's time to sharpen the king of the blazing sun's spirit. Otherwise, he'll suffer a huge loss sooner or later. The higher-ups of the human race discussed. Most of them were not optimistic about Zhou Zhou. Only a few of them were waiting to see what would happen. Amongst the gods, the Black Moon King looked at the two people confronting each other below and felt a little anxious. How could he be so rash? He just joined the Supreme Council of the human race. How did he offend the heavenly Bodhisattva of light? This guy is famous for being petty and protective. The reason why Roygar is dissatisfied with Zhou Zhou is probably because Zhou Zhou squeezed into the human race's Supreme Council, causing the Saha Empire's preparations over the years to go down the drain. This is difficult. Everyone knows Roygar's personality. Zhou Zhou's path in the upper echelons of the human race is going to be difficult. What can I do to help him? The Black Moon King fell into deep thought. Zhou Zhou had saved his life. No matter what, he had to help Zhou Zhou, even if it meant offending the Saha Empire, a behemoth. In the arena, if you admit defeat now and take the initiative to resign as a member of the Supreme Council, I can't forgive you for offending me, Roygar said coldly. He felt that he was really a great benevolent person. He actually spared this human junior who had offended him. Zhou Zhou did not say anything. He just calmly raised his right hand and raised his index finger. What do you mean? Roygar frowned. One sword move. Zhou Zhou said, I'll admit defeat if you can make me use my second sword move. Roygar was stunned for a moment before he flew into a rage. Arrogant junior. I won't let you off. Just as he was about to take action, he saw Zhou Zhou condense a silver-gray sword in his right hand before standing on his body. Then, he said softly, I am the king of all living beings. Boom. His aura increased rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he broke through the limit of the legendary tier and arrived at the inferior god level. Low-tier deity level intermediate grade. Mid-tier deity level intermediate grade. High-tier deity level intermediate grade. High-tier deity level advanced grade. At this moment, the aura on his body still did not stop increasing. Instead, it continued to increase while the aura of many nomological powers constantly appeared on his body. Ice, blazing sun, dragon slaying, sword Dao, saber Dao, space, dragon, battle formation, war, strength. More than 10 types of nomological powers appeared on his body and fused into it. In the eyes of Roygar and the gods, at this moment, Zhou Zhou had a supreme charm of controlling everything. Soon, his aura gradually stopped rising. Zhou Zhou opened his eyes and shook his head slightly as he felt the improvement in his body. Even though he had already comprehended 30% of the White Platinum Tier King's nomological engravings and could gather the power of 100 people to gather on himself, he was still unable to break through the barrier between a high-tier deity level and a true god. He possessed true god-tier divine power. In this state, he could already use 15 to 16 casual attacks at the true god-tier level. Only by becoming a god spirit can I have the combat power of a true god tier under normal circumstances. Zhou Zhou thought to himself. Then he looked at Roygar. Roygar was standing rooted to the ground, looking at him as if he was looking at a monster. Zhou Zhou didn't say anything else when he saw this. He condensed a high-tier deity-level advanced grade sword of new dimension creation and slashed out. The true god-tier sword energy was like a real sword that could split the world apart. It even cracked the Xinyuan realm. This world created by the Yellow Emperor could not even withstand a single strike from Zhou Zhou. Facing this sword, Roygar's expression suddenly changed. Light Heavenly Saint Buddha Kingdom. Roygar pressed his palms together and revealed a benevolent expression. Behind him, the Merit Buddha emitted a bright light. It vaguely revealed a vast Buddhist country that was illuminated by boundless light. And yet, after the sword landed, the light heavenly sage Buddha kingdom was shattered by the sword. The figures of the 10,000 Buddhas dissipated and the light melded. Roygar could not maintain his cross-legged posture and fell to the ground in a sorry state. His expression was dull, as if he could not accept everything in front of him. He actually lost? Defeated by a legendary tier human junior? At this moment, Zhou Zhou walked in front of him. You're right. The weak should indeed respect the strong. But it seems that you've mistaken who the strong person is, he said. When Roygar heard this, he immediately felt ashamed. There was silence around the arena. The air seemed to quiet down. All the higher-ups of the human race looked at the figures standing and falling on the battlefield in a daze. Even the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Liu, and Bai He were no exception. What did they see? Legendary tier advanced grade defeated high-tier deity level advanced grade? The gods felt as if their worldview had been overturned. After they came back to their senses, they looked at each other. Do you understand how Roygar was defeated? This is a battle between divine senses. External forces are almost useless. They rely on true strength, but even so, Roygar actually lost? What's going on with that sword? What kind of law can be so powerful? Could it be that the cultivation path he took was different? What was that aura on him just now? Why do I feel that it's a little like the supreme resistance? There's no technique. It's all crushing. The gods could not understand how Zhou Zhou defeated Roygar. They could only tell that the origin power that Zhou Zhou used far exceeded they. It could even be said that they were crushed. Coupled with the fact that King of the Blazing Sun's cultivation realm had temporarily increased to the same level as Roygar, this resulted in such a crushing victory. At the same time, the Yellow Emperor, Patriarch Liu, and Bai He also wore solemn expressions. Old Liu, can you tell? The Yellow Emperor's expression showed how solemn, unbelievable, and excited he was. The supreme laws. Patriarch Liu's expression was also very strange and shocked. This kid is actually walking the nomological path of the supreme resistance that Regal Pango mentioned. Bai He hadn't seen Zhou Zhou walk the nomological path to begin with, but it had actually increased his strength by so much. Now that he heard the Yellow Emperor and Patriarch Liu's words, his eyes immediately widened. It's the supreme nomological law? Control everything and control all laws. The Yellow Emperor nodded. Only the legendary supreme laws can do this. Regal Pangu once said that legendary tier's supreme nomological laws can be used even without much understanding. Furthermore, the power of its usage is as if it's using its own intrinsic nomological laws, just like a monarch controlling his subjects and subjects. Bai He looked at Zhou Zhou and took a deep breath. I originally didn't believe that there were such magical nomological laws in this world, but now, I've finally seen it. Legend has it that among the top 3 laws in the world, there is a law called the Chaos Law. It is known as the head of magical provenance, beginning and end of worlds. But so what? The Chaos Law is still controlled by the number 1 supreme law. Patriarch Liu also clicked his tongue. Otherwise, why would it be named after concepts like supreme, regal, lord, god, and supreme? This is an invincible path of laws. The Yellow Emperor lamented. I was still thinking about what kind of nomological power little friend Blazing Sun would walk. I didn't expect it to be this nomological path. Little friend Blazing Sun's future is limitless. The 3 of them looked at each other, and felt that their previous decision was right. The prerequisite is that you have to walk until the end. Lu Zhou remained calm. If you can't grow to the end, being invincible is just a lie. The Yellow Emperor and Baihe nodded. Then, the Yellow Emperor said with a solemn expression, "The supreme laws have always been known only to a few god spirits. We must not leak this matter, or else it will definitely bring great trouble to little friend Blazing Sunday." Patriarch Lu and Baihe's expressions turned cold. Then, they nodded solemnly. This was the first time they had seen the Yellow Emperor reveal such a serious expression. Then, the Yellow Emperor waved his right hand. Zhou Zhou and the gods felt the scene in front of them change and returned to the highest meeting room. At this moment, the meeting room was very quiet. The gods looked at Zhou Zhou in a daze. Opposite Zhou Zhou, the heavenly bodhisattva of light, Roigar, looked at him with a pale face and cold sweat on his forehead. "Seniors." Zhou Zhou suddenly spoke and looked at the gods calmly. "Am I qualified to sit in this position now?" The scene was a little calm for a moment. Then, a smiling voice sounded. "Good, good, good." The Yellow Emperor smiled and looked at Zhou Zhou with admiration. "As a legendary tier advanced grade, you defeated high-tier Deita-level advanced grade Bodhisattva, Roigar. In addition to your loyalty to the human race and your contributions to the human race, if you don't have the qualifications to sit in this position, most of the council members in the Supreme Council won't be able to sit in this position." "Zhou Zhou." Baihe suddenly spoke. He looked at the other party and pointed at the empty seat beside him. "You can sit here. Since you already have combat power comparable to a true god tier, from now on, you are the sixth representative of the human race. This position is second only to Regal Pangu, His Excellency the Yellow Emperor, His Excellency the Buddha Lord, His Excellency Patriarch Lu, and me. The rest of the council members, each take a step back. Zhou Zhou, we're all looking forward to the day you take another step forward and grow up to stand shoulder to shoulder with us. When the time comes, our human race will have another ultimate expert." The gods were stunned. Ultimate expert? They were silent for a few seconds before they reacted. Immediately, there was an uproar. Many people's faces were filled with excitement. Yes, the King of the Blazing Sun was only a legendary tier advanced grade, but he could defeat a high-tier deity-level advanced deity with a single strike. He had combat strength close to that of a true god tier. Then, after the King of the Blazing Sun advanced to God Spirit, wouldn't he be able to possess true god-tier combat strength? Even though this deduction sounded reasonable, it was actually a little unreliable. Nonetheless, they were right. "Thank you for your high regard, Your Holiness. I'll do my best," Zhou Zhou said. Then, he stood up and came to Baihe's side. Without any hesitation, he sat in the sixth councilman's seat. "Let us welcome Zhou Zhou to become the sixth representative of the human race. Let us add another super expert to the human race." Patriarch Lu clapped his hands. Seeing this, the gods also clapped their hands, including Roigar, who had just been defeated by Zhou Zhou. They looked a little dazed. Not long ago, they only treated Zhou Zhou as an unprecedented outstanding junior who had suddenly risen to prominence among the human race. They did not expect that in such a short period of time, the other party had actually arrived at the same position as them, to the extent that they had to look up to him. This King of the Blazing Sun had already broken away from the label of a Super Lord Genius and had officially become a Super Lord Expert. "I'm also very happy to be able to join the Supreme Council of the human race and become the sixth councilman. However, I'm still inexperienced and there are still many things I don't understand. Please take care of me in the future," Zhou Zhou said gently. It was completely different from his arrogant appearance just now. The upper echelons of the human race smiled and nodded. At the same time, they could not help but praise in their hearts. The change in attitude was so natural. This King of the Blazing Sun, the younger generation will surpass us in time. After Zhou Zhou finished speaking, Baihe spoke again. "All right, let's get back to business. This is also the reason why I urgently convened the Supreme Council of the human race." The upper echelons of the human race listened attentively. Zhou Zhou's performance just now was too outstanding. They had almost forgotten the original purpose of their meeting. But he surveyed the crowd and slowly said, "This matter is indeed related to the King of the Blazing Sun. You've heard about it during the previous Supreme Conferences. During this period of time, the King of the Blazing Sun has lent a helping hand to our Night Empire and the Divine Sword Empire. He has eliminated nearly 3 billion fog monsters that besieged our human empire and killed more than 20 Scarlet God spirits. He has resolved the danger of fog monsters that our two human empires are facing. But because of that, currently, a large number of Scarlet Fog monster factions are targeting King of the Blazing Sun. Just now, the King of the Blazing Sun came to me and asked for our help. There's nothing to discuss. The King of the Blazing Sun is a hero of our human race. He got into trouble because he helped us, so we naturally have to help King of the Blazing Sun survive this crisis. What we discussed was how to help. He said. The upper echelons of the human race looked at each other. Then, an unexpected person spoke. It was actually the glorious heaven bodhisattva, Roigar, who had just been defeated by the King of the Blazing Sun. I will bring 5 Vajra-bit Buddhist cultivators and 200 million troops from the Saha Empire to help the King of the Blazing Sun. But I have one condition, Roigar said. The gods looked at him in surprise. They never expected him to be the first to stand up at such a time. Zhou Zhou was also a little surprised. Roigar looked at Zhou Zhou and said, King of the Blazing Sun, I hope that after your crisis is resolved, you can bring troops and god spirits to the Saha Empire to resolve the fog monster crisis of the Saha Empire. Our Buddha Lord has undergone nirvana on his own. Senior brother Kasyapa, the ruler of the empire, has gone to the myriad worlds to look for the Buddha Lord's nirvana body. He has yet to return. We can't even contact him. He is currently suspected to be missing. Due to the problem of faith, the Saha Empire has grudges with many other races. Coupled with the calamity of the myriad races and the invasion of a large number of fog monsters, the current crisis the Saha Empire is facing is actually even greater than the Divine Sword Empire and the Night Empire. We really need help. Roigar lowered his head, having no choice but to say this for the Saha Empire. He gritted his teeth, feeling a little humiliated. Zhou Zhou looked at this scene thoughtfully. At this moment, the Yellow Emperor's voice sounded in his ears. Little friend Blazing Sun, please don't blame Roigar for his rudeness. Ever since Regal Pangu sealed himself in the primordial world and the Buddha underwent nirvana on his own, the current king of the Saha Empire, Kasyapa, went to the myriad worlds to find the back of the Buddha's nirvana. The Saha Empire's situation can be said to be the most difficult among the 5 human empires. As for the 5 human empires, our situation is not very good either. We can't help the Saha Empire too much. During this period of time, Roigar, the heavenly bodhisattva of light, had been supporting the Saha Empire. The pressure on his shoulders could be imagined. Before you came, Roigar had been working hard and making contributions with resources in order to obtain the help of the human race openly. He wanted his junior brother Puwang to join the Supreme Council and fight for more resources. After you join, this spot will be gone. Roigar will inevitably be a little depressed. I'm not blaming you for this. After all, we can only blame ourselves for this. After all, we suddenly gave you this spot. I just want to tell you the reason for this and let you understand that Roigar is not an evil person. As for how his request will be decided, everything will be decided by you, the 6th councilman. There's no need to care about our thoughts. Zhou Zhou was taken aback. After some thought, he sent a voice transmission. Senior Yellow Emperor is too serious. In fact, after I saw the techniques he cultivated and the Buddhist light of virtue behind him, I knew that he was not an evil person. Whether it was the light heavenly Saint Buddha kingdom or the merit Buddha light, in his bloodline inheritance records, only those with great merit and perseverance could cultivate them. This was related to the methods of laws. It could not be faked. Zhou Zhou continued. The reason why I said this in the arena previously was because I was unhappy and wanted to show off my strength. As for what he said, not to mention the reinforcements that he brought over, Even if it was just to obtain a new faction quest, I would still bring my troops to the Saha Empire. Great kindness. The Yellow Emperor smiled and stopped transmitting his voice. Zhou Zhou only looked up and said, "Okay," to Roygar before saying nothing else. Seeing this, Roygar said, "Thank you." Zhou Zhou nodded slightly and did not say anything else. "I'll help too. However, I don't have any lords under me now, so I can only come alone." The Black Moon King finally spoke. He had wanted to be the first to speak up to help, but Roygar beat him to it. "Thank you, Black Moon King. I'll pay you handsomely afterwards." Zhou Zhou's attitude towards the Black Moon King was completely different as he said with a smile, "You saved my life. Let's not talk about this before." The Black Moon King waved his hand, not caring about the reward at all. However, Zhou Zhou made up his mind to give the Black Moon King a huge gift after this crisis. "Your Excellency Bai He, may I ask how many factions have come to deal with the Blazing Sun King's fog monsters?" Some higher-ups of the human race thought. There are 12 Empire-level Scarlet Legions and more than 200 Kingdom-level Scarlet Legions. Their military strength should exceed 5 billion. Moreover, there are 3 Empire-level soldier types in 3 of the Empire-level Scarlet Army. As for the Scarlet God Spirits, there should be about 100 of them in total. Bai spoke. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of the upper echelons of the human race changed. 5 billion soldiers, 3 Empire-level soldier types, 100 Scarlet God Spirits. Why did they attract so many fog monsters? Some higher-ups of the human race could not help but be shocked. "Because he's the king of the blazing sun," Patriarch Lu said calmly. Everyone looked at each other in silence. That's right, this sentence was enough to explain it. The upper echelons of the human race hesitated. Previously, they had thought that the ones who had come to deal with the Blazing Sun King would at most be a dozen or 20 Scarlet God Spirits, plus 1 billion or 2 billion Scarlet Fog Forces. If that was the case, they also had the confidence to deal with it. However, if there were 5 billion fog monsters, about 100 Scarlet God Spirits, and the Scarlet Army of 3 Empire-level soldier types, under such circumstances, even if they participated, they would probably be in danger of dying. Should I help? They hesitated. But at this moment, Zhou Zhou spoke. Everyone should be wearing the divine artifacts that I lent out previously, right? The upper echelons of the human race nodded. All the upper echelons of the human race present, even the high-tier Deity-level ones, were wearing a few divine artifacts borrowed from Zhou Zhou. There were even some low-tier deity-level human god spirits who simply wore borrowed low-tier deity-level divine artifacts and armed themselves to the teeth. Could it be that the King of the Blazing Sun wants us to take action because of this matter? Some higher-ups of the human race thought. If that was the case, it was related to his life and safety. At most, he would not lend it to her. No matter how magical it was naturally not as important as his own life. At this moment, Zhou Zhou said again, "This king knows that with the supreme agreement around, even if everyone wants to help me, it will be difficult for them to do so. Therefore, this king intends to employ everyone. In this war, as long as a human god spirit is willing to come to my side to participate in the war, no matter what the final outcome of the war is, even if it's just killing some normal fog monster soldiers during the war, I'm willing to give them any divine artifact they rent after the war. If our human god spirit kills one of the other party's scarlet god spirits in the upcoming battle and is willing to hand over the other party's corpse to me, I can directly give the other party an entire set of 6 divine artifacts from those divine artifacts I rented. If our human god spirits are injured or even killed in the upcoming battle, this king is also willing to pay free medical treatment and resurrection services until our god spirits are cured or completely revived. At the same time, according to the extent of my injuries, I will also give the other party a divine artifact that can reach the level of 3 lesser deities. If it's a god spirit of our human race who died in battle, I will send someone to revive him and also give him a set of divine artifacts at the low-tier deity level. That's the deal. What do you think? Those who are willing to participate in the battle, can you raise your hand?" Zhou Zhou looked at the gods. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Roygar raised his trembling hand. Right on the heels of that was the Black Moon King. King Imoluo, Windblade God, Dream God, Giant Spirit God, Heavenly Moon God. In less than a moment, other than the Yellow Emperor and the other two true bodies, the other god spirits present all raised their hands. Zhou Zhou smiled. The feeling of being a kryptonite was awesome. He could easily pull in a group of high-end substitutes at any price. Moreover, he would probably earn more after this. How could this be reasonable?
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe.